For me, not clearly the rest of the world, but for me and my wife, as we looked at each other watching this unfolding, going, are you enjoying this? Because I'm hating this. Are you hating this? Yeah, I'm hating this. It's absolutely awful. It's The Irishman. No. I can't stand it, all right? I tried to get through. I did get through it. But like, we got about 20 minutes in, and when we sort of looked at each other and said, like, nothing's really happening. Like, no real characters. There's no real pace to it. It's just a series of sort of random flashbacks. Well, not random, but there's this one dude's sort of flashback, his life over time, kind of like Boyhood, and just sort of going like, well, this is the story. And it's not a story. It's a selection of different shots from this dude's life that clearly took a whole bunch of energy to put together in regards to the production, but it's not inherently interesting. You're just watching what feels like B and C cuts from what used to be premiere gangster movies. And obviously it's Scorsese and De Niro and Pacino and that guy with the squeaky voice, Joe Pesci, coming back, and that makes you want to keep going. And I feel like I literally said to my wife, I was like, I think that we owe it to cinema to get through this. But as half an hour became an hour, became 2 hours, became 2.5 hours, and nothing's happening. Nothing is happening at all. It was just ludicrous. It's the most drawn out, painful slog, and apparently that's meant to be a positive, because by the time you get to the end, that was the only bit that sort of remotely landed, is the way that this movie eventually ends. But that was more because I felt dead myself, and it was just like, the biggest slog. I love that it was able to have been made. I love that Netflix granted it. I'm glad that he got it off the ground, that he said what he wanted to say, and I get that it's kind of almost like a metaphor for Scorsese's career at this point, and all the people that are involved in it. But the de-aging tech looked terrible, just weirdly bright blue laser eyes for De Niro the whole way through. And at one point he's just white eyes with little black dots in them. It looks like Rey Mysterio, and it's just ludicrous. That CG took me out of it all the time, regardless of the fact that script-wise nothing was happening. They don't really delve into any of the elements that are supposed to pay off over time, and I was just turgidly bored. I gave it like 1 star in my mind, and because of the way that it was shot, I guess. But I couldn't even name you a single good set piece, like scene selection shot or anything. I honestly hate it, and it doesn't need to be 3.5 hours long either. Jesus.
I've seen so much trash this year. I've seen The Curse of La Llorona. I've seen, goddamn Serenity. I've seen a bunch of terrible movies, but in a way I was prepared for those films to be terrible. What I wasn't prepared to hurt me deep inside was Danny Boyle's Yesterday, which should have been a feel-good time, because I love overly sentimental things. I love saccharine things. I love having the feels put in me through a nice family-friendly movie, and yet this felt like it was chemically engineered to irritate my skin as much as possible, because from the very start of this film, which is about this man who wakes up and he's the only person on the world who knows what the Beatles are, and he uses that for monetary gain because he's a musician himself, so he starts singing Beatles tunes and suddenly becomes the most popular man in music. It's a great premise that could make for its own sort of anthology series, but it's completely wasted in the most asinine way. This man is a vacuum of all crack. He has no personality, and he's just like the worst guy at any house party. He's the kind of guy who would genuinely bust out the guitar and start singing Wonderwall when you just want to, sip some more Buckfast and get on with it. He is just so frustrating even before the plot kicks in. He's like condescending and patronizing. And Lily James, who is the best actress of all time, is in love with him for some reason, despite him having no personality. He has such little personality in this film that he makes Ed Sheeran look like a bastion of great banter. Ed Sheeran has an actual part to play in this film because he kind of discovers the guy who's singing about the Beatles. And at first you're like, I don't want you to be in this because you're Ed Sheeran. But then you're like pining for the times that he'll show up because he's the best part of this film. And if Ed Sheeran is the best part of your movie, something has gone drastically wrong. I think I just hate the premise because it's done in such a sort of brain dead way without any imagination, because obviously, to get the Beatles music, you need to make sure the script is okayed by the surviving member of the Beatles and their estate, which means you can't say anything bad about them, so they're presented as the best band in the world, and that might be true. But if the Beatles were just around now, they wouldn't be the biggest band in the world, Ash. They wouldn't be, and it wouldn't work, and especially done in this way that just lacks personality and charisma, and it's bad, and I don't like it at all, and thinking about it makes me hurt, because the worst part is that it almost manipulates you into thinking it's a good movie, because you got Danny Boyle there, you got Lily James, and the guy who plays the main character he's quite good, but the issue is that it's bad, man. It's bad. It's not good. I need to rematch for that. I just lost my mind. Oh.
Why wouldn't the Beatles be the best band in the world today?
Well, Scott, they wouldn't be the best band in the world today because they're so of their time. They influenced so much music that if they just sort of, came around, you don't have that same context. Music, the industry now isn't in the same place it was back then, you know what I mean? We don't like the same things, for better or worse. I'm not saying the music's worse. I'm not saying like the Beatles are worse than what's around today. But I can't imagine the mainstream pop charts being dominated by these people. There's something about the premise that doesn't quite sit right with me. And it's the fact that Danny Boyle directs it as well. That's just the most frustrating part because, come on, it's Danny Boyle. He's made some of my favorite films of all time. But this invalidates them. It invalidates them. 28 Days Later is bad now.
It's Dark Phoenix, isn't it? I could have said so many different things on here. I was tempted to say Joker because I genuinely think even though it's a technically well-crafted film, Joaquin Phoenix does a great performance and it looks brilliant. I didn't really like it. I thought it was a very poorly kind of just constructed story, but I digress. I do think Dark Phoenix, both as on a technical level, as a filmic experience, and as a comic book movie, it just completely fails. This is meant to be Fox's last hurrah for the X-Men, and it ends up whimpering off into a little pathetic fart. It's absolutely appalling. It's a film that has Dazzler, the most exciting X-Man ever, and she has a 5-second cameo. And the film, if you were measuring my actual heart rate during the film, it would have just been boop, 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 and then it would go back. It would just flatline for the rest of it because it's absolutely appalling. It is just. It's amazing this film even got made. It seems as though they learned none of their mistakes. You had Days of Future Past, which was incredible. Then you went to Apocalypse, which was the same old, Bryan Singer crap. And they ended it with, they're going to have their proper costumes now. And then this isn't a slight against Frank Whiteley's new X-Men designs, but they were made as a response to the black costumes the X-Men had in the early 2000s. And it's almost like this thing where they bizarrely think they're playing reference to the comics, but in actual fact they're playing reference to the comics mimicking the film, which is the whole thing that was bad about them to begin with, and all the acting's crap as well. Jennifer Lawrence just does not give a toss. James McAvoy, he gives the most hammy performance as Professor X I've ever seen. It's just bad, and it's all kind of exemplified by that horrendous scene where the Phoenix makes him walk up the stairs and he's doing his best Monty Python mysteriously walks thing. It's all absolutely horrendous. The plot makes no sense. It's boring, it's dull, it's the antithesis of what the X-Men is all about. And yeah, what a dismal, dismal ending to a mixed franchise on Fox's behalf.
The worst movie of 2019 is one that I scrubbed from my memory. It was only upon hearing its title and thinking, what have I seen this year, that it came flooding back to me in a wave of just nothing. And I feel that's the worst thing a film can do, is not make you feel anything. I don't viscerally hate it. I in no way feel any sort of attachment or endearment towards it. And it's The Dead Don't Die. And it's literally the whole thing is supposed to be this deadpan redoing of the zombie genre, where a little town is plagued by zombies and loads of strange things are going on and they don't know why. And it's it's Adam Driver and Bill Murray wandering around going, zombies. Something bad's gonna happen here for hours on end. It's so dry. They try to approach it with this proper deadpan, dry sense of humor, which is just really, really flat the whole way through. And instead of working to its strengths, and making it a satire and having strange things play out with this sort of reaction that in any sort of entertaining way, it's very much just them looking at things being like, ooh. It's too much. It's too much. I don't even know what to say about it because it's literally just the same bland oatmeal performance all the way through, and it's not funny and it doesn't work. There's 2 points where they reference that they basically know that it's a film. It's meta, and they're good, but they don't carry a film all the way through. And everything is just repeated a million times to try and make it funny. The theme tune of The Dead Don't Die is on a CD in the film, and they keep putting it on and keep putting it on, turning on the radio and being The Dead Don't Die comes on, here's the theme song again. It's painful. It's cringy. It doesn't sit well at all. And for something that should have been this great socio-political commentary on zombies, George A. Romero has done it 1,000 times before, and this doesn't add anything to it. It's not entertaining. It wasn't an enjoyable cinema experience. I expected some zombies, some dry humor, some interesting sort of plot, and it was just literally porridge the whole way through. Honestly, it was pulped up zombie film and left out in the sun for a bit. There was just nothing to it. Like I say, I don't hate it is a thing. I'm not there it's the worst film I've ever seen, but it is the worst film of the year because it just doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything new, it doesn't do anything interesting. It's just there. It's just there. And all these wonderful actors are in it. Tilda Swinton with a samurai sword should really evoke something in you, but no.
I had a few options to choose from here. I got dragged to see Charlie's Angels the other day. That was fine. It's kind of dull, but it wasn't bad. I was going to say the new Men in Black that you went to see.
Boo, you're all good.
Yeah, but I didn't go and see it because I knew it was going to be dreadful. And the Men in Black trilogy is the best trilogy possibly ever.
Better than Mission Impossible. Better than Lord of the Rings.
But definitely better than Lord of the Rings. That's a low bar, isn't it? But the one I'm going to have to go for as my worst film of 2019 is What Men Want. Because that's what we were all wanting at the start of this year. Oh, when they're going to do a remake of What Women Want, but about men. Oh, it's awful. It's so bad I forgot I saw it until we mentioned this. And I was like, and you're just like, oh, what's that? What's that bubbling underneath me? It's dreadful because whatever your opinion of, remakes of films, normally they're meant to be good films, first of all, but remakes of films with, we've got a problem with Mel Gibson's classic What Women Want over there. Anyway, normally, when you make a sort of gender-reversed version of it, whatever your opinion of it, it adds something different to it. The Ocean's films, or whatever that may be, it adds a bit of nuance, and you think, oh, this is interesting. It's just the same film. It's just the same film, except you can hear what men think rather than a bloke can hear what women think, right? It's, oh, isn't it? She's got a gay assistant. Who knew, eh? Bloody hell. Oh, that fit bloke in the lift just thinking, oh, I wish I could shag her. Right there, then they have a shag, but they can't because he's a weird sex addict or something. And then at the end, it all works out because instead of using empathy and relating to people, she just looks into their head and goes, oh, that's what they want, and then she gets some sports deal or something. I can't really remember. I was so angry by the end of it. I was hoping Mel Gibson was going to show up to sort all of this out. That's how bad it was. It's the worst film of 2019.
The worst film of 2019, not what all of these other people have said, is also the most disappointing personally for me. Because I really, 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 really love Hellboy. Oh. In the olden days of this website, when it was called something else entirely, we used to have little cartoon characters that represented us for all of the things that we posted. Mine was me as Hellboy. That's how much I love Hellboy. So naturally, when I heard there was going to be a new Hellboy, I thought, oh, it's bad, it's not going to be Hellboy 3 by Guillermo del Toro. That's a little bit of a shame. But then they cast David Harbour, and then they showed what David Harbour looked like as Hellboy, and I was like, oh my God, this looks so good. And I mean, then the first trailer came out.
R-rated?
It was, yeah, which is exactly what we needed. And then the first trailer came out, and it was awful, to be honest. But still, I was like, no, it's fine. Trailers don't always tell the whole picture. I'll delude myself into thinking this might be a good film. And then the second trailer came out, and it was better. I was like, yeah, you see, I was right all along. And then the film came out, and it's not very good. It's not very good at all. It's awfully written. David Harbour is really good as Hellboy, but the fact that he somehow manages to emerge with any sort of credibility out of this movie is phenomenal and testament both to him and to how good Stranger Things is. Because if he didn't have Stranger Things, he would not now be in Black Widow and be getting all of these other opportunities because Hellboy is absolute dink.